but we've cleaned it, we put it in petrol, we lit it on fire, and it's good to go. Let's get into this. This is going to be fun. I like having a chat, and I've got a funny feeling my friend here doesn't mind a chat as well.
Yeah, no, yes, Sam, we love talking, don't we?
We don't mind talking. This is Kashif Din from One World Rental. What is your title? You're the director, founder?
Yeah, both, yes.
Both.
Yes, I started a company, we're in our 12th year now.
12th year.
Yeah.
And this session is about how to find the right global IT, hardware and technical event solutions partner for your event. It's going to be, I think, really interesting because this is something I know nothing about, event technology, even though I'm here hosting this stage. I'm more of the delivery, experiential, entertainment side of things, but so many people don't know what is required to deliver an incredibly well-run event from the technological side. So I'm excited. Can we get the Glisser QR code up real quick? If you have a question in the audience, don't all ask at once. You can do the QR code or you can go to glsr.live/ETL21, find the blue stage. Please ask questions because Kashif is going to be an encyclopedia of knowledge, I think. So if you no matter how silly the question seems, it's all anonymous. Get involved. It's more fun because this is just an interview. This is just going to be a discussion. So we want to hear from you. So very quickly, Kashif, briefly explain what One World Rental does, what makes you unique. Give us a quick elevator pitch and tell us more.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. So the idea of this session now is really to talk about hardware deployment at an event and making sure that an event works really well with really good hardware and on-site deployment, as well as the software. I mean, there are great software companies here today, and we've heard a lot about software over the last couple of days, but the software is only really as good as how well it's deployed, and the hardware, which really essentially is the vehicle for driving that software, and essentially how well it's deployed, things like power, Wi-Fi, the on-site expertise, so on and so forth. We, as a business, One World Rental, we are a event technology provider, mainly focusing on hardware, logistics, and operational fulfillment. As the name suggests, we are a rental business, but a lot of what we do goes beyond essentially just moving product. It's ensuring that the full event deployment is smooth, it's seamless, and it's around the world. I guess what sets us apart is the fact that we are a truly global business, so we come in really well in situations where a client potentially may want to run 10, 15 simultaneous events or the same roadshow across several cities around the world, so they can get really seamless, consistent deliveries of events, whether it's in Latin America, New York, Berlin, the Middle East, Singapore, Australia, so you have the identical event. So
right.
As a corporate client, you can get real consistency across all of your global locations where you want to work. And I think as post-COVID, as we go more into regional meetings as opposed to one large AGM where people are flying from all over the world to one location, I think now we're seeing a big shift where there's a lot more regional meetings. So an AGM now is split across 4 regions rather than everyone.
Multi-hub.
Exactly. So in situations like those, the consistency is even more important.
Yeah, because you explained it to me so well last week when we were talking about this event. People genuinely used to put everything in a truck, drive around, set it up, pack it up, go to the next town, which now sounds quite insane. But I guess they want to know that they've got the exact AV or the exact software and hardware at every event. Whereas, was that the reason you started One World Rental? Is there a story there? Did you see that this could be done better? This can be done differently?
I mean, honestly speaking, Sam, I think 12 years ago when we started the business, there was no, at that point, the idea wasn't, I didn't think we would be where we are right now, frankly speaking. At that point, we didn't think we were going to have 12, 13 offices around the world and, thousands and thousands of products of fleet and so on and so forth. But, where we are right now is really an evolution of how the business has grown and expanded, listening to our customers, sharing ideas, saying yes to great opportunities, always listening. And that's kind of just evolved our business into being, a global player right now and essentially being in a position where we're able to really contribute towards the industry and even allow software companies to navigate the next versions of products around the new hardware that's coming out. Because, we're always talking to the manufacturers of products, we're understanding, what's coming out in the next year, 2 years ahead. So we're really kind of in sync with product portfolios and pipelines for the future, and then connect that with the software and then, bring it all together on site at events.
Wow. Okay. So we know what One World Rental does, and we don't want to just be. It's not the One World Rental show because you have so much information, I imagine, and experience. So the question is, I've been asked to put on a roadshow, to organise a roadshow. I don't really know much about that side of hardware when it comes to event technology.
Yeah.
What are the questions that people don't ask, or where do people get it wrong all the time, so that we can help people just not make those mistakes because they've been made by someone else?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think for me personally, it's really important to plan ahead. You know, the worst thing you can do as an organizer is to call up an IT rental company or a software provider and say, I have an event in 2 days and I need 1,000 laptops. So planning is important. I think to some extent flexibility is really important as well. So, and what I mean by that is, you know, you might be doing a large conference and you want every single delegate to have an iPod or an iPhone or an iPad, for example. So it's always good not to get too fixated on a very particular size of iPad or color of iPad, and you know, try and have a bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
That essentially just means that you can get more done in a lower budget because
Yeah.
you're open to more ideas. And I think also, you know, it's important to be transparent and really kind of explain what it is that you want. Share the vision with the supplier. It doesn't have to be One World Rental. There's tons of really good suppliers out there. But it's really important to be very transparent in explaining what it is that you want, and listen to what the local supplier at that particular event who's supporting you can deliver to you. I think generally speaking, clients will struggle if they share, you know, a spec sheet online and say, I want exactly this and I want it in that city.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, most companies, you know, may make that happen, but it comes at a cost which you can avoid if you just, you know, try and plan a little bit ahead and be a bit more flexible in your requirements.
Yeah, that's a good point, because they can have exactly what they want, but they got to pay. It's going to cost them.
Yeah.
If you can be a bit flexible on the size of the iPad, you're going to be able to help them out and probably do it at a better price than people who get so caught up on it has to be exactly this way, because that's how we did it last year.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, you know, the thing about it, that's how we've always done it. That normally is.
That drives me mental. We've always done that.
It's got to be a very consultative approach on both sides, and I think a good supplier should really be able to have that consultative conversation on both sides. You know, I think supplier management as well as customer management is both important on both sides when you're trying to truly work together to put on great events.
And this is a big thing in all industries at the moment, but you're not a supplier, you're a partner, you're an expert. You're a consultant, give them advice. This is the way I would do it. This is like that people should be tapping into your knowledge. You're not you personally, but you're not just the sales guy who just gives them what they want. There should be well, what do you think would make this event run better or run more smoothly? Yeah,
I mean, this is I think definitely a contributor to our success over the years, where we generally do position ourselves as a partner in the market, working with software companies, you know, as partners, not a hardware supplier to just, you know, ship out equipment in a flight case, for sure.
Okay, we've got a question that isn't one of mine. This is coming through Glisser. How has challenges with freight and transport delays impacted your global business? Are there changes to event planning, lead times and cycles? What a great question, gosh.
That's a superb question. It's very relevant. And I think for companies based in the UK, that question is there's two factors. There's the Brexit factor there,
yeah.
And then there's also the COVID factor. Yes, it's even more important to try and work with a supplier that does have, you know, local, global infrastructure. Shipping equipment around the world now, it's always traditionally been very difficult, but now just multiply that. Not just in terms of your typical customs delays, shipping delays, but also just freight cost, availability of freight capacity on a global level. So it's really important to have plan ahead and make sure that you have a supplier that is able to give equipment on a local level. We as a business have got a huge logistics element within our team. You cannot deliver equipment worldwide, even on a local scale, without having really strong logistics. So it's definitely one of the biggest kind of, you know, components of our business, logistics.
Yeah.
We have a specific, almost like a business within a business, which is OWR Logistics, and I think it's going to get even more challenging, I think, as you know, the landscape changes of the coming months.
And so I know you've got 13 offices, you're in Australia, and so where...
Sydney and Melbourne and Australia, that's correct, yeah.
But if people need something, and it's the jobs in Australia, you're getting it from one of those, like you have warehouses, or where does it all physically live, this stuff?
Yeah, so the product catalog that we have is those devices are essentially split across all the offices, and that's where the global consistency is so important. So if you had an event, say in Melbourne or Sydney or anywhere in Australia, you will get equipment domestically from within Australia.
Okay.
But then if you wanted the same part code, the same product, or the same family of product, for example, in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, or in Atlanta, or in America, or Phoenix, it would be the same product. So essentially you could repeat an event in 4 different parts of the world, and you will get the exact same product. So we are really kind of conscious of giving customers that consistency. So even the packaging that we give, the cable ties, the instruction manuals, they are all very consistent in every part of the world.
And operators to operate the gear, or is it just...
Oh, I mean, if event staffing has to be a key component
Yeah.
of all of this to bring it all together.
Yeah.
So there's on-site support. And I think, it doesn't have to be one more rental, of course. Just as an educational point here, irrespective of who your supplier is, it's really, really important to work with people that are from the events industry. You've got to work with the events people when you're looking to acquire technology for an event. The event kind of mindset is very different, unlike a deployment in an office, for example, where you have days or weeks to set up an office. The events industry, the date is fixed, you can't move it. The event date is fixed, and it just gets closer and closer. So it's really important to have a hardware provider that's got staff who understand events and are definitely local, so they understand the local culture where that event is also then being deployed as well. The way to rig an event, for example, in London at Truman is very different from setting up an event in, say, Dubai. And that's why you need to have some local expertise and local knowledge to then be able to deploy and have that on-site experience in those local places.
Amazing. We'll pop the Glisser code back up, buddy. Do you mind? We'll pop the QR code and the thing, because we want some more questions. This is a good one. I do events regularly. Should I buy technology or rent technology? If I buy, I can reuse it on my schedule of events and save money. So why should I rent it?
Again, that's a great question. And I think for us as a business, a lot of people assume that everything we do is rental. It's actually not. We do actually manage a lot of people's own equipment as well. And there's no right or wrong answer here. It's not about acquiring assets. It's about how you deploy the asset at an event to make sure that it does what you need it to do. So in an event like this, there's hundreds of TV screens everywhere. But just getting a few pallets of TV screens is not going to resolve your event target. You need to make sure those TVs are set up in the right way, they're showing the right content, they're mounted, the accessories are there. And therefore, even if you buy the equipment, you need to really think about how you're going to deploy the equipment.
Exactly.
So I think irrespective of whether you buy the equipment or you rent it, the main question there is, who's taking responsibility for making sure that hardware works and functions the way it needs to function. And you could do that via a rental model or a buying model. It really doesn't matter as long as it commercially makes sense.
As long as it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's okay if you're a Google and you've got a theatre in your office that's got all the gear, but I imagine these are people that would be to be moving it around for their events, and that doesn't sound like something that's easy to do. I would be outsourcing that to someone else.
So a lot of companies actually own their own equipment, don't touch their equipment from day to day for events. They own the equipment, and then they outsource it to partners who then manage that equipment for them.
Oh, wow.
So I suppose, if you want to buy the equipment, that's great. You get to benefit from owning the asset. As a company owner, as an organizer, you can continue to use the same equipment again and again. So you won't necessarily pay a rental fee for it, but you still really should have a really strong plan in place about how you will maintain the equipment. And I think, for the audience listening, if you have events in different countries, you have to think about how you're going to move that owned equipment in different places. So if you work in a very domestic environment, then I guess, yes, or if you're dealing with relatively small quantities, then yes, you could own them and you can store them in a cupboard somewhere. But if you're talking about several hundred laptops or devices and you want them spread across various cities, then it's how you utilize the assets that's really, really important. And that's where the question isn't really whether I should rent or whether I should buy. It's more about, how are you going to best utilize that piece of equipment, irrespective of the model of how you acquired it.
Okay. Speaking of, other options out there, give a plug or give us some examples of some great partners of yours or suppliers or software providers that are out there that are doing some really cool stuff, even if they're a competitor.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, it's a competition in this industry is great.
Yeah.
You know, it keeps everybody on their toes. We're constantly innovating. We're always trying to kind of, you know, think of bright ideas, and I think that's really healthy and that's really, really good. In terms of software companies, we're finding, especially, you know, in the last couple of years, the trend has really moved a lot from software companies who used to dabble in hardware as well to now focus just purely on software.
Yeah.
And that just means that organizers need to have a hardware plan alongside a software plan as well. And what a lot of software companies are now doing is that they're creating really strong alliances with hardware partners where the hardware is handled by hardware experts while the software is handled by the software guys. So the organizer still gets a one solution, but it comes from two different people. And I think that's important because it allows software providers to just focus purely on delivering great software,
Yeah.
which is what they specialize in. Because logistics, hardware and operations is a very, very separate, very different game. And you do need to really differentiate that, but at the same time you need to give a very seamless experience to the end user as well.
Yeah, and let people be experts at what they're experts at. And you know, totally different world, but we do interactive entertainment and team building. We don't do AV. I could easily bring a PA system to our gig, but it's not my expertise, and I don't want that responsibility.
Yeah.
And there are people who do that brilliantly,
Yeah.
so why would I put that stress on myself and look bad in front of my client?
Exactly. I mean, and we're the same. You know, we're not necessarily an AV company, and we understand that when you have got, you know, large events where you need really strong AV expertise, then we would bring in an AV expert to handle the AV, because AV is not technology rental. It's AV. It's a slightly different, has a very different set of requirements, and you have to let the people that know what they're doing focus on what they're doing.
Focus on it, yeah. And collaborate, which is the best, which is the most fun part of what we do,
For sure.
I think. Another question come in. Keep them coming, please. What happens, this is a great question, I guess, around sustainability. What happens to the old tech? Is it challenging to keep up with the latest tech? Or what happens to the old hardware that's outdated?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great question as well. So, essentially, for us as a business, we try and invest in products that are not necessarily consumer brands. So they're not products that go out of date next year or the day after. So you can really use them over a long period of time. There are always uses for even, you know, for example, an iPad that's 7-8 years old is still being used, for example, for really basic applications, for kind of, you know, signage, for example. So we try and maximize the utilization of a certain piece of hardware by moving it around the world in different areas where you don't necessarily need the latest technology. But then we also sell off equipment after a number of years to essentially new homes. You know, we give a lot of product away. We donate lots of product.
Awesome.
So, you know, a couple of years ago, you know, we gave a lot of iPads away through various channels in the education sector, through the various care homes and stuff that needed equipment and stuff. So, you know, as long as you have good technology, there's always home for it, even from a kind of, you know, a reused, non-commercial perspective.
Repurposing, and I love that idea that you're donating it to charities or to nursing homes.
Yeah, we certainly don't throw things away in the landfill.
No, okay, that's good. That's a relief. Keep the questions coming. I told you I was going to ask this question because I just think it's a really nice way to show authenticity. Give us a failure. Give us an absolute fuck up that you've done. One World Rental have got wrong. Give me a story of or a learning, as they call it these days.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, Sam, failure is a very strong word, right? But
exactly.
I think, look, when you spend 12, 13 years growing a business and as a business on a global scale, of course you're going to make mistakes. You know, we've all made mistakes. The company's made mistakes. I've personally made tons of mistakes. But there really are mistakes that you learn from. And what's great about mistakes is when you make them, you don't know you're making that mistake. No. So it's something that you always look back on.
Yeah.
For us, especially kind of, you know, in the middle period of our business where we were going through, you know, really rapid growth, we spent a lot of time trying to decipher the processes that are out there. So what does an established business do to run better, to work better? And then it kind of got to a point where we realized that, well, actually, there isn't really an answer out there. We have to create our own processes. We have to make sure that we design what really works for our customers and for where we are in the business, because we're very unique. And when you start trusting your brand, you start trusting your team, you start trusting your business, to be able to, be the architect of that process rather than decipher some existing system out there, by watching these LinkedIn learning videos and stuff. That's where you can realize you can save a lot of time by actually really focusing on what you know best and how you can apply your own processes to a business. So I think when we started to create our own processes, that really helped. And then also, as a on-site event business, you're only going to be as strong as your weakest technician. You're always going to be as strong as, your product portfolio is only going to be as good as the worst product that you have, or the kind of, the worst condition of product that you have. So we, in the early days, used to subcontract a lot. We used to, go to other companies and not really get involved in the fulfillment. And that's something that we kind of learned to try and avoid doing. And I think if a client trusts us to come to us, to use our infrastructure, to use our product, our people to deliver an event, we definitely do owe it to them to do it ourselves as well. So over the years we've tried to limit, if at all completely eliminate any subcontracting within the business, to try and do it all ourselves, which once, it's easier said than done once you get to a position where you've got the global infrastructure. But I think, when you have that global infrastructure, it's always better to try and do as much of it in-house, so you can really give the customers what you're promising them, which is global consistency.
That is your base USP, is consistency. So the second you subcontract to someone who's not as passionate as you, or not as professional, or just does things differently, you're kind of getting rid of the bit that I think is what is a great selling point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, this is good. What do you see that's changed or different in the post-COVID world within the IT hardware and technical event solutions landscape? So what's different now than it was, nearly 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to the question that we had about Glisso earlier on as well, about the logistics kind of post-event. I think one of the biggest challenges that the industry is facing right now, at least on a global delivery mechanism, is the further complexities of shipping things around the world, and also slightly different way that product is now being used as well. So as you see here today, for example, there's a lot of contactless ways of lead retrieval, lead retention. The badge printing, for example, is very different. A couple of years ago, if you came to get your badge, you'd be using the same keyboard, people will be handing you things, and that doesn't really happen anymore. So we're moving a lot more into a contactless hardware requirement area. A lot more of the front-facing camera style thing is really popular at the moment. But I think the challenge really, or the complexities right now, which we have to be really cautious of, are ensuring we have longer lead times in place for when we're shipping cross borders, and just the kind of the cost and the capacity limitations that would come from that. Alrighty.
So I feel like I'm an 80-year-old that is stuck in a 36-year-old's body. I'm not good with tech. So if software is an app, hardware is the phone, right?
Yes,
correct.
That's correct.
So how important is having the great hardware to drive? You could have the greatest app in the world or the greatest software idea in the world. It's not really possible without the hardware. Is that right? Or
I mean, whether the hardware is your own personal phone, which you can use when you come to events like these, or whether the hardware is given to you at an AGM meeting or a conference, the best way to look at it is the hardware is essentially the vehicle for driving that software and driving that solution. So the hardware is really, really important. And in most cases, even if you don't physically see the hardware, there's hardware all around us that's actually driving that event, whether it's the Wi-Fi, whether it's the cameras here. I think a lot of the people here and the people in the audience are events people, so they probably understand how these events are set up and what this venue looked like 3 days ago. But if you come in as an audience, or if you go to an event at the Excel or NSC or DWTC in Dubai, you walk into this great event and everything's all ready and it's all glossy and it's fantastic. But there's a lot that goes into that event, and there's a lot of technology behind the walls, in the ceilings. I mean, these badges here have got RFID chips inside them, so there's hardware everywhere all around us. Yes. So that's why you're tapping when you go to stand, because there's a chip inside. It's not just paper.
Wow.
So it's really, really important to have the hardware which is compatible and works well with the software. Which again comes back to my previous point about you need to choose hardware partners that understand the industry and our events people, because they will be able to connect the hardware and deploy it in a way that makes sense for that particular event in that use case.
Okay. Speaking of COVID, was there? I don't like the word, but was there a pivot for you guys? What was your main source of work and income in the last? Obviously, road shows weren't happening, and what were you doing for the last? What have you been doing for the last 18 months?
Well, I think, you know, being a technology provider, well, being a hardware provider, there's always uses for products. So I think we've definitely had different styles of deployment. So we've had to work a lot with the likes of the NHS, the vaccine drives. Even right now, a lot of the booster stations that are giving out booster jabs have technology in them, which is supplied by us. So you know, a laptop can be used in so many different ways, right? And barcode scanners can be used in so many different ways. You can have scanners that are scanning visitors to an exhibition hall, but then you also have scanners that are scanning, you know, I suppose, vaccine barcodes or whatever. So there's a lot of compatibility within the kind of hardware that we choose and we stock. So that's been, you know, I suppose, a big part of our business over the last couple of years. But of course, you know, COVID has impacted the industry, and being a technology provider, yes, the events industry is a very, very big part of our business, but we were quite fortunate to be able to use our equipment in different areas of the world as well.
Cool. We've got 2 questions that have come in, and we've got 3 minutes left, so this is perfect. Someone's asked me to flip my failure question and ask you, what was one customer accomplishment that you're super proud of? An event you delivered, or a project, or something where you nailed it?
So I'm going to go for actually a client that it's not just one event, but this is a client, it's a fundraising client. We actually won an award with them here last year. It's a client who, they do about 1,000 events a year, so 1,000 on-site fundraising events.
Wow.
Using technology like silent auctions and fundraising and stuff, using tablets, Wi-Fi, and we manage the operational fulfillment for this client. So we go on site 1,000 nights a year across the world, and that's definitely, you know, a relationship and a client and work that we do as a business that we're really proud of, because it means that, you know, you've got this fantastic client that's putting a lot of trust in your business to be able to drive their business completely forward. We know that as that client grows, you know, we grow with them, so that's absolutely fantastic as well. But it also means that you know, we're really in touch with the on-site on a very regular basis. So yeah, just going on site.
How long have you had that relationship, or the business?
I think we're coming on to about 4 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, but what's fantastic about working with some of the strategic partners is we essentially are an outsourced partner for these clients. So we are, you know, there's a lot of trust put in us to make sure that we do a really good job, because it's their reputation on the line, essentially. And that, you know, pulling those events off and looking back at those events and knowing that we're helping companies grow and reach their potential and giving them scalability on a global scale is something that makes us really happy to look back on.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, perfect timing. Have you been affected by lack of equipment within the manufacturer's supply chain? Because that's going on with us. I'm a guitarist. There's a tiny chip in my guitar tuner that's broken that they can't get at the moment in London. So it's...
So up until now, we're actually quite fortunate because we actually buy all over the world. So we're able to tap into supply chains and, you know, clear out whoever has stock or whatever. I mean, I remember last month we were scrambling around the world to find Oculus headsets, and, you know, coming up to Christmas, Oculus headsets are very difficult to find, but we managed to, you know, get a fair few hundred headsets, but we had to buy them from almost every Oculus headset reseller you could find in the Western world. But we do understand that there's an issue that's definitely brewing, and I think as we go into next year, you know, this situation should sort itself out. For now, we have, you know, huge amount of inventory around the world, and hopefully that will keep us going as we go into next year.
All right. Does anyone have a question they want to ask with their human mouth? No.
I think we've had a lot of questions.
Stick to the technology then. Okay. I think we're good, mate. Look at that. It's 1:15 on the dot.
Fantastic. Thank you,
We
Sam, for
nailed
having
it.
me.
Thank you, mate. Thank you so much. Kashif from One World Rental, everyone.
Thank you.